What is stress? Most of us state that we are stressed out at least a few times a day, but what do we actually mean? Most of us are talking about situations that are going on around us, e.g. work, family problems, etc., but stress is actually a problem which occurs within the body. Stress is basically overload, and it occurs for physically and psychologically in its effects. In the US, it is estimated that the economic cost of illnesses related to stress is more than $200 billion every single year. Stress is life-threatening when left unchecked, leading to cardiovascular problems, such as heart attacks. The immune system is also affected, leaving you open to illness and viruses as you go about your daily life. External events unite with the discomfort of our own response to overwhelm us and exhaust our ability to cope. The human body is built to withstand a certain amount of stress, but only when necessary. When the natural stress response is triggered on a continual or too frequent basis, the effect turns from preventative to damaging. During this stress response, the body's major systems all join forces, so when stress is prolonged or chronic, all major systems are equally as affected. This response is called fight or flight, and it is designed to help the body cope in an emergency, and come out the other side unscathed, providing the body with everything it needs to survive. Stress can help us deal with situations which pose a threat to our survival or our happiness, but prolonged stress can be damaging for health and well-being. The human body is designed to withstand moderate stress, but it is certainly not designed to withstand prolonged, severe stress. Allostasis and allostatic load. The body seeks to remain within a normal mode at all times, with the fight or flight option there to help the body survive difficult situations. Allostasis is a derivative of homeostasis, i.e. a need for the body to remain within a steady state for the general running of all bodily systems. Put simply, the body wants to remain the same, it doesn't like change. Allostasis takes that a slight step further and incorporates the various methods the body puts into place to deal with stress and to ensure that nothing strays too far away from the norm. The idea of allostasis first came to be in the 1980s, and it is the way the body quickly communicates between the brain and the other systems, e.g. endocrine, to kick defense systems into place. As long as the most energy possible is sent to the parts of the body that need it, the body successfully deals with the passing stressful situation. For instance, some people find that getting up early in the morning is stressful for them. To help deal with that, the body falls into a rhythm and knows to send extra stress hormones at that time of day, to help that person deal with the stress of getting up. On the other hand, the allostatic load is the enemy of the body. This is the factors which add up to the stressful situation in a physical sense. For instance, not getting enough sleep causes allostatic load, because sleep deprivation is a known stressor and will lead to an increase in cortisol and blood glucose. The more allostatic load you have in your life, the more stressed out you are, and the more damaging an effect it can have on your overall health. Allostasis is the body's attempt to keep everything on an even keel and works hand in hand with the idea of homeostasis. Allostatic load is a term which describes the elements and the number of factors which create the stress reaction in the body. It's just emotions? The idea that emotions and stress are linked isn't a new one, and it was Walton Cannon in 1914 who really introduced the idea to the medical world. From there, a Hungarian scientist called Hans Selye took the idea further and recognized the different psychological aspects which are involved in the way the body responds to situations which are challenging, stressful. We can easily stress ourselves out by thinking back over a difficult situation or memory, triggering the body's natural stress response. In addition, we can overload our systems with poor lifestyle choices, drinking, smoking, not exercising, eating poorly, and add further stress to the situation. Stress is a huge problem in this day and age, and as a result, diseases and chronic conditions are increasing. Put simply, we are on information overload thanks to the internet, TV, phones, constantly being switched on. We never have the time to rest, and this all links into the way our emotions are triggered by various stimuli and therefore goes on to cause the stress response. This is all totally needless. We do not need to stress ourselves out. Emotions can cause stress without even realizing it. Often we think back over memories which caused us a certain emotion at the time, and recalling these can initiate the stress response all over again. The stress response. The way the body responds to stress, allostatic load, is very interesting to learn about, and it helps you to understand just how damaging stress can be for the entire body. When the brain detects what it considers to be a stressor or a challenging situation, it kicks the stress response into action. The brain is the organ which decides whether something is a threat or not, and most of the time it goes on the defensive. In this case, it will quickly scan a situation and ask itself whether you've been there before, how you dealt with it last time and how you felt. If it finds a negative, it starts to quickly communicate with other systems in the following ways. Your heart rate increases to pump blood to the places that are going to need it most. Your breathing becomes shallower, to allow extra oxygen into the lungs. Stress hormones are released, cortisol and adrenaline, as well as endorphins, which act as a natural painkiller. These are the basic stress response settings, but this also works hand in hand with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal gland or HPA axis. This communicates and controls the nervous system, the glands, and the immune system and holds everything in balance. The HPA axis is also responsible for releasing cortisol, one of the important stress hormones, into the bloodstream. Cortisol helps with energy replenishment when the fight or flight mode is in full swing. Too much cortisol, however, e.g. when you're in a constant state of stress, can lead to weight gain in dangerous areas, e.g. the abdomen. Whether we need to fight, stand firm, bolt to safety, or concentrate on a task at hand, the stress response provides the tools. Once the stressful situation seems to abate, the body calms down and homeostasis is restored. This entire stress response happens within the blink of an eye, but when it is prolonged, e.g. when the body is responding to what it considers to be threats all of the time, the stress response turns from useful to damage. Stress creates the body's natural stress response, also known as fight or flight. This starts in the brain and spreads to the HPA axis. All the major bodily systems are involved in this reaction, ensuring the body survives whatever challenge is in front of it. The brain is the one which decides whether a situation is threatening or not. The brain and stress. The idea that emotions and stress are linked is something you have read about briefly already, but when you explore how stress and the brain interlink with each other, you'll understand more about the emotional side of the coin too. Stress always begins in the brain, and humans have the ability to become stressed from something that isn't actually real, e.g. just an idea. Have you ever become stressed over thinking too much, e.g. a what-if situation? This is your brain recognizing an idea and causing stress. The brain is a wonderful and extremely complex organ. It only weighs about 3 pounds, but it contains 100 billion cells, neurons, which communicate with the entire body through branches and electrical charges, chemicals. This communication process is extremely complex and scientists still don't completely understand the brain in its entirety. What most do agree on is that high levels of cortisol for a prolonged period of time may cause cognitive impairment, especially worsening as age progresses. The hippocampus is thought to be the part of the brain which can trigger a memory and therefore cause the stress response to begin. The hippocampus is located deep inside the brain and only measures around 2 inches. Despite its small size, it is a powerful piece of the brain, and it is mainly responsible for memories. The brain overall is very adept at remembering how a situation or problem made us feel at the time, and this is held in the hippocampus, to be pulled back to our consciousness at any time. Another part of the brain called the amygdala also works hand in hand with triggering stress via memory and emotion. When the 2 parts of the brain work together to remember a scary experience, the fight or flight response is quickly initiated by the brain. The brain is a small yet complex organ which most scientists still don't understand completely. What they do know is that the hippocampus, the part of the brain which is responsible for memories, and the amygdala combine when recalling a particularly emotional memory, bringing the stress response into play. When protection turns negative, the stress response is designed to keep the body safe and to be able to survive what the brain considers to be a threat. The problem is, most of the time these are not real threats, and only what the brain perceives to be. In that case, we can be in the fight or flight mode quite needlessly a lot of the time. During this process, adrenaline and cortisol are flooding the body. That is useful when there is a real emergency at hand, but when there is no situation to deal with, extra stress hormones, especially over a long period of time, can actually be harmful. When the HPA axis is out of balance, e.g. it is responding to situations which are simply not genuine emergencies, then it releases adrenaline first of all and then cortisol. This will surge the blood pressure upwards, which can over time affect the blood vessels in the heart and the brain. This may cause hardening of the vessels, a major risk factor for stroke. A heart attack is also possible in this situation. The main situations in which the body's protective systems can turn on themselves include unremitting stress, not being able to adjust, not being able to recognize when the stressful situation is over. These are all prolonged situations, which basically means that you are overdosing on stress hormones, in a constant state of allostatic load. The following issues can then occur. The immune system doesn't know how to react to allergies, especially asthma, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, diabetes, malnutrition, OCD, panic disorder. This is just a snapshot, but you can see that the issues caused by a constant state of stress can be about the body and the mind. The body's stress reaction is designed to maintain survival, but when a prolonged period of stress occurs, it can turn on itself and cause damage. Prolonged stress basically means an overdose of stress hormones. The immune system and stress. Not only does stress affect the cardiovascular system and the brain, but it also has a very damaging effect on the immune system. You may have noticed that during difficult times in your life, e.g. when you've been particularly stressed by a situation, you become ill quite quickly. For instance, you might pick up a common cold almost immediately. When the immune system is affected by stress, it attacks things which literally aren't threats at all, and this in itself causes more inflammation within the body. Inflammation is supposed to be a protective effect, but as with most issues concerning stress, when it is too prominent within the body, it turns on itself and causes damage. Overall, stress can make existing problems worse, but it may also cause new problems, especially asthma, and a rather surprising finding of chronic pelvic pain. A study by Christina Heim at the University of Trier examined a sample of 30 women, some of which had pelvic pain and some which didn't. They went through their history and tested cortisol levels, finding that those who had pelvic pain had a history of stress, sexual and physical abuse, and a blunted response in the HPA axis. It's not only inflammation and pain which can be worsened by stress, but autoimmune conditions too. As part of the stress response, white blood cells start to look out for threats too, and when the response is prolonged, they start attacking things which really aren't threatening at all. This can cause illness, weakness of the entire immune system, and create conditions within the body which were not there before, including insulin-dependent diabetes. During periods of stress, you're far more likely to become ill with a common cold or another ailment. This is because the immune system isn't quite sure what is going on, and overreacts to any threat that the brain perceives. 6 steps to less stress. If you want to reduce all of the effects mentioned in the book and keep your stress response for truly stress situations, then you need to maximize the protection that your response gives you, and avoid overstimulating it and causing damage. Stress is a choice in so many ways, and by making lifestyle changes you can reduce the amount of stress in your life and how your brain perceives situations. Living a life full of poor lifestyle choices can push the HPA axis out of balance and increase cortisol within the body. 1. Walk more. The National Institute of Health conducted a study in 2002 which showed that just 150 minutes of exercise per week can reduce your chances of developing diabetes. 3,000 people took part in the study, and most chose to walk as their exercise method. We know that type 2 diabetes is a type of allostatic load because it places stress on the entire body, linked to heart disease and obesity. The results of the study showed that the group who did the exercise reduced their diabetes risk by a huge 58%. 2. Eat a healthy diet. Living in a constant state of stress will make you put weight on because it will make you feel hungrier. In this case, the body will simply assume that supplies of energy are low, and as a result glucocorticoids will increase. When this happens, energy is stored away in the form of fat and glycogen. This is normally linked to abdominal fat, which is the unhealthiest of all. By eating a healthy and varied diet, in conjunction with exercise, you can reduce your allostatic load as a result. 3. Get plenty of sleep. Sleep is important because it allows the body to carry out important repairs, but scientists still don't know exactly why sleep is so vital. When you're constantly stressed, you're probably not going to sleep too well, and this causes your entire bodily functions to be out of balance. One of the first things a doctor will ask you if they suspect you may be suffering from depression is if you have had any disturbance to your sleep pattern. With this in mind, sleep deprivation in itself is a stressor. 4. Avoid drinking alcohol. Most people turn to alcohol as a coping mechanism, but alcohol is actually a stressor in itself. This is because most alcoholic beverages contain ethanol, which stimulates the HPA axis initially but then turns the high to a low. The cortisol response to too much alcohol will provide you with enough allostatic load to become damaging. 5. Maintain your social circle. Many studies have shown that having a strong social network helps protect against allostatic load. Many primate studies have shown that the biggest stressor occurred when taking a primate away from their regular group. Maintaining a quality social circle provides you with support through difficult times, reduce your pulse rate when stress occurs and helps with anxiety and depression. 6. Think positive thoughts. There is some suggestion that we can change our stress reaction by thinking positive thoughts and using affirmations on a regular basis. In 1996, Michael Phelps at the University of California at Los Angeles developed the first PET scanner, which he used to examine the brains of patients suffering from OCD. These scans were performed before and after a period of behavioral and cognitive therapy, over the course of 10 weeks. The results showed a decrease in abnormal brain activity. Whilst there is no solid proof, positive affirmations may help you deal with stressful situations in a stronger way. A healthier lifestyle in general is a good way to reduce allostatic load and therefore reduce the amount of stress hormones and responses in your life. Exercise, sleep, reducing alcohol, ensuring you have a strong social circle and perhaps developing a stronger positive mindset will all help. Stress protection is a positive. The body has its own stress prevention techniques for a reason, and whilst it's entirely possible for these to be turned against you with a prolonged period of stress, there are some positive elements to the response. Our author calls these elements positive health because they are designed to allow the body to return to homeostasis once the stressor has gone. All of this is part and parcel of allostasis as a whole. The main positive health elements are endorphins. First discovered in the 70s, endorphins are the body's natural painkillers, akin to opium. These are produced as part of the fight or flight response and bring pain relief, ensuring the body can overcome the threat at hand without pain creating a barrier to survival. Oxytocin, this is neuropeptide which also worked as a bonding hormone. Oxytocin is thought to affect the social interactions that help individuals deal with stress. Prolactin, this is another hormone which triggers lactation in women, but it is also a protection against the effects of stress for both men and women. It is though that prolactin may help allostasis. Exercise is also known to help boost levels of prolactin. BDNF. BDNF is a neurotrophic factor that is thought to be beneficial for allostatic load. This affects the memory part of the brain and helps to protect against ischemia, which may otherwise contribute towards a stroke. Estrogen, this female hormone has an effect which helps to stimulate the brain's neurons and create new synapses, whilst helping to protect the brain against free radicals. All of this means the memory is protected. Allostatic load does not always denote a failure of the body's efforts to cope with change or emergency. Positive health relates to the parts of the stress response which ensure the body returns back to normal after a stress response has taken place. These have developed over the process of evolution and ensure positive and strong health. In the future, our author outlines some points for the future which he hopes will come to fruition in terms of how we recognize and deal with stress. It is hoped that doctors will start to regularly screen patients for allostatic load risk factors and understand that emotions have a real link to our physical and psychological health. The fact that stress begins in the mind leads people to falsely think that you can just snap out of it, but that's not the truth of the situation. Hopefully, in the future, this mindset will change and doctors who specialize in treating children will also begin to understand the allostatic load and how it can affect the younger years. A general focus on mental health will also help people deal with stress and understand the factors which can create allostatic load. The hope is that doctors focus more on stress as a whole in the future, recognizing the physical and psychological effects that challenges can cause us. Conclusion. Understanding how stress is created and where it begins is important. If more and more people understand the bodily reactions to stressors and how they can detrimentally affect the body, perhaps changes can be made to lifestyles and therefore ensure these are avoided. By taking greater care of yourself, changing your lifestyle towards the healthy end of the scale, and cutting out smoking and other damaging behaviors, stress and allostatic load may be reduced. Try this. 1. Examine how much sleep you get on a regular basis and make changes if you feel you're not getting enough. 2. Increase the amount of exercise you have every week, and aim for 150 minutes over the week. 3. Are you a smoker? Make a plan to stop.